Good morning. Lovely to be here with you and to be able to share with you once again. And I do bring the greetings from the Heart of England Baptist churches, 156 churches, and we cover the West Midlands area. And so although you're geographically at the lower end, the south part, I want you to know that we do remember you very much. And each day we highlight 5 churches that we pray for, and as we're moving through, and we're on P's at the moment, so Ross will be coming up very shortly. So an Advent journey. The first picture, please. I think if you Google family Christmas, I wonder what you find. Well, I'll tell you what you find. You tend to find happy families sat around beautiful decorations, sparkling Christmas tree loaded with presents, a table stuffed with fabulous food. Is the next slide, please? Yeah, thank you. These are some of the things that you will find. Family huddled together on a sofa watching a film. Usually you find a man dressed in red as well. They tend to feature quite highly as well. I wonder what your plans are for Christmas. Are they the same or a bit different this year? We're in a more challenging season. We'll come back to that in just a moment. But what does Christmas mean for you? What does Christmas mean for you? And does what we do reflect what it means to us? Is it an opportunity for a family gathering? Is it a time to celebrate and have some fun? Is it some downtime from the usual routine of work? Most people tend to have a bit of a rhythm to their Decembers. But how much does that first Christmas event 2,000 years ago impact on what we do and what we choose to do? Advent is here. So we've got the Advent calendars. The next slide, please. And thank you, Andrew, for explaining a little bit about Advent. Advent means the arrival of a notable person or a thing, really. The word comes, it's a Latin word from Adventus, and in the Christian calendar it's the preparation and the celebration of the birth of Jesus, but also the preparation and the celebration of the coming of Christ again. We look forward as well. And it's the 4 preceding Sundays to Christmas Day is that season of Advent, where we have the focus. We remember and celebrate the coming of Christ. I sense that the real meaning of Christmas has been somewhat lost by our culture, as Christmas has become much more of an annual holiday, an excuse for a good time, whatever people mean by that, and an opportunity to connect with the family. And it does strike me that that man in red has become predominant rather than the character of Jesus. The Christmas story has lots of journeys. The next one, please. We'll reflect in a moment. Mary and Joseph travelled to Bethlehem. We don't know how. We don't know if a donkey was involved. It's interesting. It was very difficult to find a picture of the journey to Bethlehem without a donkey. But we don't know if a donkey was involved or not. And around 2 years later, the wise men, the Magi, turn up. They go to a house. They don't go to a stable. They made their journey to Bethlehem. And that resulted in another journey that Mary and Joseph made to Egypt, because it wasn't safe for them to stay. And then after the death of Herod, it was yet another journey that they took. back again. And this morning, I'd like to take us on a journey that took place around about 1,000 years before Mary and Joseph, during the time of the Judges. And our story begins in a time of crisis, of famine, of no food. Next one, please. Maybe similar to today, many migrants around are on a journey in order to find food and escape from conflict. And here Elimelech and Naomi with their 2 sons, they travel from Bethlehem, I've made a little note on the map there, over to Moab. They would have gone round the top past Jericho and gone into Moab. The Moabites occupied this land east of the Jordan. They were made up of nomadic tribes. They were descended from Moab, who was a son of Lot by his older daughter. Moab and its people crop up quite a bit in the Old Testament on several occasions, and mainly for their opposition to the Israelites and trying to lure the Israelites away from their devotion to God and into idolatry and immorality. There's something called the King's Highway that goes straight up through the middle of Moab, and when Moses was leaving Egypt, they were refused permission to go through that territory, and there was always lots of tension between Moab. So it's interesting that here we find Elimelech and Naomi fleeing into, in one sense, enemy territory where they were uncomfortable. Why? Because they had no food. They were desperate in that sense. But they made their home there in Moab. But we find out that Elimelech dies. The 2 sons marry Moabite women, Orpah and Ruth. And around 10 years later, after arriving in Moab, both sons die. I wonder if you can imagine something of that tragedy, of the pain, the loss, the heartache that Naomi would have felt, of moving out of her comfortable zone and into an area that was uncomfortable. It was enemy territory in one sense, but managed to find a bit of a place to live. And then suddenly those that are nearest and dearest die. News reached her that there's food in Judah. Let's remember there's no TV stations. There's no satellite dishes. There's no instant that we find out what's happening the other side of the world when it happens and we see it that moment. But here it would have taken a little bit of time for news to travel, and it would have taken a good deal of time for news of what's happening in Judah to come to Moab. But she finds that there is now food in Judah. She's alone. She feels alone. And so she makes that decision to return to her roots back in Bethlehem. Her daughters-in-law are ready to come with her. But Orpah, at Naomi's insistence, stays. But Ruth insists, don't urge me to leave you, to turn back. I love the words that then Ruth speaks. When Pam's with me this morning, Pam and I are married, we're 39 years and now, but when we got married, we wrote our own wedding vows. There's very little legally you have to say when you get married, and we used these words from Ruth, or some of these words. Next one, please. So, in my younger days, what we looked like on our wedding day, and So where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people. Now, we stopped it there. We didn't want to bring any confusion about your God or be my God. Where you die, I will die, it goes on to say. But we took those as that commitment that Ruth was making to Naomi, that I am committed to you. And we wanted to make that commitment. And then the other words that we used, I've actually put up there. We said slightly different words. We took it from Ephesians 5. And a reflection there about marriage. And the words are a little different. The journey would have been a hard journey back for Naomi, but made better and easier because Ruth had committed herself to walk with her. We'll come back a little bit later to that. And the next one, please. But she wanted her name changed, did Naomi. And certainly in the ancient Near East, names are very descriptive and they mean something. And so Naomi means pleasant. And she said, I don't want to be called Naomi in one sense. It's not a pleasant time for me. It's been a hard and a rough road. And I want it to be called Mara, meaning bitter. Because that's my experience at the moment. She felt God was against her. Everything had gone wrong in the 10 years since leaving Bethlehem. And she's returning, in one sense, a broken woman. Let's think for a moment of the pain that there was in that first Christmas story. We celebrate the birth of Jesus, and often there's a sense of almost cuddliness and warmth. But there was a huge deal of pain within the Christmas story that we have. The journey that Mary and Joseph had to make. Remember, Mary is 9 months pregnant and making a journey of approximately 100 miles. Now, whether she had the luxury, because it would have been luxury, of going on a donkey or not, we don't know. But it would have taken a long time to make that journey of 100 miles. There's no place to stay when they arrive. Can you think, rocking up in town? They didn't have 5-star hotels or even 1-star hotels in those days. So their accommodation that was on offer wasn't fantastic anyway. But there wasn't anything. And to offer a place with the animals. Probably just grateful that they got a place to lay their head after that sort of journey. They had the joy of the birth, the shepherds. But then, within 2 years, they find out that Herod is seeking Jesus. Herod didn't want a rival king, so he kills all the children under 2. There's weeping in Ramah. There's pain, there's hurt. Mary and Joseph are off again. They find refuge in a foreign land themselves. Refugees, migrants. Living in fear of being found out. They return, though not to Judah when Herod died, because that wasn't still safe, but went back to Nazareth, to Galilee, to start life again. You know, life can be a bit of a struggle. It's not all smooth and easy going. And as I alluded a little earlier, we're probably in a time of more pain and struggle at the moment. With the COVID virus over these last couple of years, and maybe we know of a loved one that has suffered, or ourselves within our family. As a result of COVID, people have lost their jobs and income's been reduced. There's financial pressures. And now we're in that more severe economic situation. Concern about how we pay bills, energy costs. Sorry, the next one, please. Are on the increase. Food prices haven't risen like this for years. And then there's life seasons, loved ones passed away, illnesses to cope with, issues to resolve. Maybe for some, Christmas isn't that happy time because you're reminded of tensions in family and relationships. And then in the world, as we look out on the picture, we see Ukraine, and our hearts pour out and we see that ongoing struggle. In the Middle East, the refugees and the migrant crisis, the increase in persecution of Christians. Our TVs daily show what's happening. And then there's flooding and other related catastrophes. And for many, pleasant has turned to bitterness. Or at least that's what it feels like. But in the darkest places, we can discover hope. Next one, please. For Naomi, she found that in her daughter-in-law, there was someone committed to her. And even though they were from different backgrounds and different cultures, here was someone that brought, I was going to say, a ray of sunshine into her life. Dedication, care, love, grace, kindness. Naomi returned back to Bethlehem. Ruth came with her. And in the pain of the Christmas story, we find that Jesus came as light, as the hope of the world, as the Prince of Peace. In your own pain and distress, at times you're disorientated, but let us this Christmas find that Jesus is the hope for us as well. He's willing to hold you and to see you through those rough times. And because it's been a rough times, it doesn't mean that God's bypassed you and he's forgotten you. God hasn't promised us an easy road, but he has promised us the strength to go through it, as Mary and Joseph experienced, and Naomi with Ruth experienced. And just in my concluding remarks, as we're thinking here of Ruth and Naomi, Ruth was a real help and support to Naomi in her pain. Can we be a Ruth to someone else today in the pain that they're experiencing, in the struggles that they're going through? Can we walk too alongside them, that they too may experience and receive something of the love of Christ in and through each one of us? May God bless you as you seek to be Christ to others this Christmas time. Amen.